Hey everyone, I'm JR, and this is one of Mike's mini history lessons. Did you know that in Tokyo, Japan, there's a school which is paid for by the North Korean government? Japan has plenty of Korean communities. They ended up in Japan back when Japan was the imperial colonizer of Korea before World War II. And after Japan lost the Second World War, these people stayed in Japan. But the kids who attend the school are not actually what you would call safe. These children, who are Korean by heritage, need to be guarded as they walk to school. Even though these children were born in Japan, as were most of their parents, they are not considered Japanese by Japan itself. It is a community of about 150,000 Koreans. They are descendants of slaves Japan brought to the island during its imperialistic days. Since Japan won't let them assimilate, they cling to what they do have, their Korean culture and heritage. North Koreans who hate Japan saw this as a chance to spread their message from inside Japan. So let's start with why Japan hates these schools. North Korea is communist while Japan is democratic. North Korea has called for Japan's destruction and often tests missiles that land in Japanese waters. North Korea also hates Japan for years of brutal colonial oppression, as well as its support of the United States during the Korean War. In 1910, Japan took over all of Korea. They tried to oppress their language and brought over thousands of slaves, men to serve in the Japanese army, and women as sex slaves. When World War II liberated Korea, the Koreans in Japan were not recognized as Japanese citizens. To make matters worse, many Koreans did not go back to Korea due to the Civil War in the 1950s and the split of the North and South after. So now, the Koreans in Japan were not citizens of Japan and had to pick which Korea they wished to affiliate themselves. The new North Korea decided to protect these Koreans in Japan and began funding their businesses and schools to help them keep their identity, hence creating a mini closed-off North Korean community within Japan. This created a situation which Koreans felt trust and loyalty to Kim Il-sung, the ruler of North Korea at the time, and North Korea the country. Also, this funding helped them set up banks and evening gambling centers. They now call themselves Chongryon. They became rich and started sending money back to North Korea. This is when Japan intervened to stop them. This Korean community became worth about $25 billion, yes with a B, and was now funding North Korean weapons programs indirectly. Also, North Korea was kidnapping Japanese citizens and making them into spies in order to use them to teach North Koreans Japanese. One Japanese citizen was a director who made a North Korean Godzilla movie. Now these Koreans in Japan were being targeted by hate speech and attacks, and Japan closed down their money-making operations, but not the schools. And at these schools, the kids are taught Korean history, Korean language, and ideology of the Kim family. Kids walk to school in traditional Japanese school clothes, and once at school, change into Korean clothes in reverse when going home. They do this to prevent themselves from being attacked by Japanese citizens. In 2006, North Korea tested a nuclear weapon, which eventually led to Japan cutting off all of its funding to these ethnic Korean schools, making them feel like outsiders even more. The Japanese anti-Korean politicians equated the scenario to Osama bin Laden and the Taliban opening schools in the United States. Would the United States be okay with that? I doubt it. Also, North Korea is notorious for abusing human rights. However, Japan has been condemned for clear, structured discrimination against ethnic Koreans in Japan. But this pales in comparison to the North Korean human rights issues, so these issues are often overlooked. For these kids, the school and North Korea represent a homeland. Although born in Japan, they still feel like they're not home since Japan wants them to give up their Korean language and customs. Meanwhile, the graduation gift for these children in their senior year of high school is a trip to visit North Korea. There's also a North Korean university in Tokyo that also acts as a North Korean museum. This too was funded by the North Korean government. These kids, born in Japan, feel as though Japan makes their lives harder while the North Korean government has supported them. It makes one think, If Japan was more open to them, these kids might not feel loyal to a hostile communist government. But this is a vicious cycle. Extreme Japanese nationalism leads to discrimination against Korean culture in Japan, which leads to them feeling less loyal to Japan, while the only support they receive comes from North Korea, whose actions of threats lead to more Japanese nationalism. Rinse and repeat. But we'll close with this. In 2010, North Korea qualified for the FIFA World Cup. Arguably their best player, Jong Tae-si, is a Japanese-born man who plays in Europe but was born in the Korean community of Tokyo. In Tokyo, these Koreans showed up en masse to watch games supporting North Korea. Clearly, the divide is strong. Here is a picture of that Japanese star crying to the North Korean national anthem during the World Cup. Note, when asked if they would leave Japan for North Korea, almost all of them say no. So evidently, they love the idea of a pure Korean state, but they just love freedom and capitalism a little more. Or at least that's the lesson you would get if Mike was your history teacher.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you have any suggestions or topics for us to cover, email us at 4guysmedianetwork@gmail.com. If you're on the go, you can subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Be sure to check out our Patreon page, 4Guys Media Network, for access to exclusive content like minisodes and more. We have a lot of goals to hit, so we can keep improving and continue providing more content ad-free. So all of your donations are greatly appreciated. Make sure you subscribe to the 4Guys Media Network YouTube channel for all of our other projects by clicking the link on the right. And lastly, if you want to watch another episode, just click the link on the left. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.